Hi everybody, my name is Ruth Ann Lane and you are tuning in for 5 ways to integrate math in a project-based learning unit. I'm really excited to talk about this with you today, even though math is something I'm a little bit nervous about. If you know me, then you know, or have been tuning in for our lives for a while now, you know that I am a PBL certified teacher with 6 years of PBL experience and 8 years of experience total. I have had the unique pleasure of being able to teach project-based learning in primary and intermediate. I'm really excited to talk about this with you today. I put a graphic on our elementary project-based learning page that kind of talks about what I'm going to talk about. If you're like me, you like to take notes, and I thought I'd kind of save you the headache. So the graphic that I shared on our page is actually my way of taking notes for you. So if you just give me a second, what I'm going to do is share this on my Learning Lane page too. If you are in our elementary project-based learning group, I also have a page called Learning Lane, where I post things besides project-based learning stuff, because I've also taught in different environments. So let's see. Done. There we go. Okay. If you are watching and this is your first year of teaching at a PBL school or PBL, go ahead and give us a wow face, because I'm sure you're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now. We all feel a little bit overwhelmed at the very beginning of the year with all of those baselines and beginning of the year tests that you have to do. So I know that it can get a little bit overwhelming to be doing your first PBL unit. But let's go ahead and we're going to dive in. And like I said, that graphic that I shared kind of is notes version. So the first way that you can integrate math into your project-based learning units is to make it. So looking through your unit as you're planning it, is there anything that your students could make? For example, could they make food? I love to do food in any project that you possibly can think of, even if it's something like, they're learning about water conservation. So maybe we are raising money for life straws for people. So maybe we're going to do a bake sale. Now we've found a way to integrate cooking and baking and putting things together. You'd be surprised by how much math you can integrate with something like food. You can do converting a recipe even. In fact, when I did an entrepreneurship project with my students, we made those layered jars to sell. And when we made them, we were learning about fractions because this was in 5th grade. And I had bought a pack of these measuring cups. And by accident, really, I didn't have enough measuring cups for everybody the first time. So as we were going through, I was like, well, you guys are going to have to use a 4th. You'll have to convert your recipe. So then the following year, what I did is I just pretended like I only had 4th cups. And then the whole class had to convert their recipes because, well, I have 6 1/4 cups, but I don't have any other ones. So you guys are going to have to figure out how many 4ths of a cup go into these. Little things like that are great ways to integrate that math in what you're doing. Building anything where they have to do angles. Hi, Caitlin. And if you maybe do something like an assembly line too. Assembly lines tie in a lot of standards. You can also read about Henry Ford and starting the assembly line and how easily cars were to be made after that. And then from there, talk about creating an assembly line. So, okay, if we're going to do these layered jars, maybe one of us is going to do the sugar and one of us is going to do the cocoa. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, let's time it. Now we've introduced time into what we are doing also. So make it. If there's anything that you can make, if you're making birdhouses, coming in at specific angles too, so you can talk about angles that way. Making it is a great way to tie things in. Number 2, pin it. Now, I am a big fan of Pinterest. In fact, we at the Elementary Project-Based Learning Group have a Pinterest board. I am going to share the links for it in the comments below. But when I went to the Indiana, because I'm from Indiana gifted conference a few years ago, they talked about doing this, and I thought it was such a powerful tool to take your resources that you find online, whether it's graphs or statistics or different things that you think are cool or that could potentially be used later in a project-based learning unit, and you pin it. So if you find like a graph that's really neat, to pin that onto a Pinterest board. Also, if you look up whatever your topic is and you do a couple different keywords, I put them in that graphic where it says pin it. So if you put like, I wrote topic math, so if you wrote like gardening math and you Google image it, you're gonna get a whole slew of pictures that pop up. Or if you do like topic graph, if you do gardening graph, you're gonna get a whole bunch of gardening graphs that pop up too. It's really a neat way to be able to find math that you can use and just to keep it, because what happens is sometimes, you know, if we're going to do a gardening project next spring and it's, you know, October, September now, how do we make sure that we still have that resource? And pinning it is a good way for you to keep track of that. All right, number 3, ask it. Surveys. Surveys are a great way to integrate all kinds of different math into your PBL unit. You can do surveys with kids as young as kindergarten all the way up to 5th and 6th grade. You can have them ask 1 to 2 option questions, like a yes/no question, or you can have them ask multiple choice questions, and you can have them interview and ask one-on-one, or they can post online and analyze the data that comes in that way. You can analyze data whole class, so maybe I'm going to stand up on a chair as the teacher and read a survey question, and if you like brownies or you like cookies better, okay, all the kids that like brownies go to this side of the room, all the kids that like cookies go to that side of the room. Now we're going to write how many people total on each side. Well, let's graph that. What percentage is that of our class? Looking at those different totals and really analyzing that data together is a great way to integrate math into your PBL unit. If you are looking at that graphic, you'll see that the next one is to ELA it. Now, I also have a reading license. I'm a really big book nerd. I love books. I love using them in our PBL units. But I really think that math and literacy go so well together, especially now in math, because so much of math are real world problems and solving real world problems. So students really need to be able to have strong reading comprehension skills. And so one of the things that I think is a great way to integrate math in your project-based learning unit is to do story problems. And I think there's 2 main ways you can do this. So the first is if you are at a school where they require that you use a specific curriculum, you can go through the chapter that they're saying that you have to use, and you can take those stories, those real world problems, and rewrite them using PBL situations. So for example, if it's a problem about someone's yard being cut into portions, you can change it into a habitat being changed into portions. As long as the actions stay the same, you can change the characters and the settings. Just keep the numbers and the actions the same, and you'll end up with the same answers for your answer keys. Also, a lot of books are about math topics that you can use. So for example, this is one that I used in the entrepreneurship project that I did. It's called Money, Money, Money. My partner and I used this a lot, and I love books that do this, but it's one of those books where it has like really short sections. So you'll see that the heading here is on the world market, and these 2 pages are the only 2 pages. So what I did, you can even see the originals, what I would do is I would take those and I would make copies of them and then front back them, and that would be a close reading activity that I would do with a small group. And then we would talk about the math concept of money or profit or coins, things like that. So finding a book over a topic like that, even if it's just at the library, and then you can read about that, and that helps kids to understand that a little bit better. You can also do real world story problems using a fiction book. Many of you probably already know this, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you anyway. When you read a book in your ELA class, so let's say we are working on a project where we're interacting with the elderly, maybe in a senior citizen home, and we're going and we're trying to form relationships with them. So maybe we're reading the book Wilford Gordon MacDonald Partridge, which by the way is one of my favorite books, and as we're reading it, we are really getting into it and the students are really relating to it. So now what I can do with this book is I can use the characters from this book and the situations to create story problems. So if I write out the equation, I can create a story problem. I could have the students do that, or I could do it myself. So for example, there's a character in here with seashells, and I can use those seashells to come up with a simple math problem that students could solve. Another way to ELA your math in your PBL unit is just to look for those nonfiction text features in a text. A lot of times those will have math-based problems that you can analyze. Graphing and analyzing tie into PBL very, very well. Analyzing data, it really ties into your project-based learning units really well. Probably you'll find that across most of your projects. Okay, just make sure that when you're writing your problems, if you're basing them off of another problem and you're using that answer key, that you're not changing those actions, because if you change those actions, it changes the entire story problem. Okay, the last one that I wanted to talk to you about today is sell it. Now I say sell it because it goes with the graphic, but you can also fundraise it. You don't have to be taking in profits. You could be, just collecting money to give. But when I'm talking about selling things and fundraising, that really has a lot of math interaction for students. For our younger kiddos, it's recognizing coins and counting money back to people. For our older kids, it's taking and tracking our expenses as we develop whatever it is that we're selling, and now we're selling it for a certain amount of money because we need to make a percentage back, and looking at that percentage, calculating tax with different things. Even if we don't charge tax, just to calculate what tax would be is a great activity also. And then discussing profit, that for many of your economic standards, that's something that students need to know anyway, and it does very closely tie into our math. So selling it, I think, is another great way to, fundraising it too, is another great way to integrate math into your project-based learning unit. Well, I hope that this was helpful. I also, even though it's not on the graphic, I just wanted to say something really quickly about the mathematical practices and how important those are. I think that a lot of those mathematical practices really tie into a project-based learning mindset. If you haven't heard of the mathematical practices, I really recommend checking them out. I'll include a link in the comments also, because those are things like having grit when you're solving a problem, like sticking with solving a problem, knowing how to use specific tools the way that they're supposed to be used, using different strategies. Things like that are a really great way to, oh, thanks for the like. Things like that are a really great way to integrate math in your PBL and that math mindset. So, okay, well, it was great to talk with you guys. If you have anything that you'd like for me to do for a Facebook Live or a watch party, please feel free to add it in the comments. Even if you're watching the rebroadcast, I don't care if it's 3 months from now. I can always use ideas, and I like to do what you think is helpful. And that is all I have for you guys today. I know you have a lot to do because it's September, almost October, guys. Enjoy, and the weekend's almost here. Bye.